Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. November is Epilepsy Awareness Month and I thought that I should make a video on this because to me this is really important and I feel like not enough people know that November is Epilepsy Awareness Month and the color is purple. This is the most purple shirt that I currently own at the moment. What is epilepsy? Let's start with So to start off, epilepsy is a neurological disease that a person has seizures, and there's a whole bunch of different types of seizures that a person can have. But a person with epilepsy will have seizures, and it's a chronic disorder. I do think for a person to be diagnosed with epilepsy, they have to have two unprovoked seizures that don't have some other cause. So for example, like, I don't know, if they hit their head and then they had a seizure, like that was provoked from hitting their heads. So I also have some quick good to know facts, and down in my description I'm gonna put a couple of links and where I got this information that I'm telling you from, so that you can look it up yourself and learn more about it, and then you have a couple of resources to be more informed. But one of the quick facts is that about 1 in 26 people develop epilepsy in their lifetime. Also, epilepsy is the fourth most common neurological disease. There are also about 200,000 new cases of epilepsy each year. I want to tell you about my own personal experience and my own personal story with epilepsy for how much I can remember, because I was a really small child when this happened. Epilepsy is important to me because I actually used to have epilepsy growing up. I think it started when I was 3 years old. That's when they found out that I had it, and I was in daycare, and fortunately it went away for me by the time I was 8 years old. But during that time I had to take a bunch of medications. I think I took Dilantin, which I'm not even sure if they give that to people who have epilepsy nowadays, because that was back in the 90s, early 2000s when I was on that medication, but maybe they do. I know I was at daycare and I was having seizures in my sleep, so you know, they took me to the hospital, and I think it happened again. So whenever I would go in to get checked, I would have the EEG hooked up to my head to see my brainwaves, because as far as I remember, again, I was really small, I wouldn't have seizures when I was awake. These would happen when I was asleep. So when I would have to see how my seizure activity is doing, they would tell me to take a nap and monitor while I'm sleeping to see if there was any seizure activity happening. And then it had stopped, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna bring her back again next year, keep her on the medications. They might have lowered it and then stopped, but you know, they wanted to keep seeing if there was no seizures in my sleep, and there weren't. So then they officially took me completely off, and I didn't have to come in to see the neurologist so that they could look at, you know, my brainwaves when I'm asleep. I feel like this is important to know in general, but also being a school psychologist, because for example, when we are trying to get students help, one of the categories that we can choose from is other health impaired, which does include students that have epilepsy. And we need to work to make sure that kids who have epilepsy are getting the right education and having accommodations that they can use so that they are getting the most out of their education. Chronic health problems, of course, can negatively impact a student, so we definitely want to be there for them to make sure we're doing everything in our power for them to succeed. With early intervention, that could help a student, especially because epilepsy can affect memory and concentration. So if someone didn't know that the student had epilepsy versus if they do, we can try to counteract that. Like, they might have problems remembering things, so they might have short-term memory, they might have problems concentrating, or maybe it messed with their vision. There's a bunch of different things that seizures can affect because it's affecting the brain. And again, there's a bunch of different types of seizures, which could lead to a variety of outcome. And maybe one student that has epilepsy might need more or less services than another student that has epilepsy, because it varies person to person, but we still need to make sure that each kid is getting their education. Some things that may help, but again, it will really vary from student to student, is you could have something that's recorded. So maybe they do have a problem in their short-term memory and they're listening to the teacher, but they can't write it down fast enough. So having an audio recording that they could go back and listen to could be an example of an accommodation that you could give for a student that has epilepsy. You could also try to break tasks down into smaller steps. So if you have a really big project, maybe they need it broken down into smaller chunks, and then that will make more sense to them for them to be able to successfully complete whatever it is that they are working on. Also, checklist assignments can help. So if you can help them write down and organize what they need to do and have them be able to check that off, that also may help. And I'm saying this just to give examples of accommodations, but also I know for me personally, even though I don't have epilepsy anymore and I don't know what parts of my brain it affected, I feel like I have problems with my short-term memory. Like, if I don't write something down, I'm gonna forget it. And sometimes that happens like in the middle of something. Like, I could be in the middle of talking and I forget what I'm gonna say. Now, I'm not saying that that's because I had epilepsy. It could just be me. That could be normal. Maybe a bunch of you have that, but I know that even just having something to write down is something that's helpful for me. So if it is affecting a student's memory and they have epilepsy, then having, that audio recording or something that they can go back to because they weren't able to store it in their long-term memory is very helpful. So everyone, I know this video wasn't very long, but I do hope that it was very helpful in learning a little more about epilepsy, my story, but also how it relates to school psychology and other health impairment. I hope that you learned a lot and continue to learn more about it, as well as many different disorders as you can, because I feel like the more we know, the more aware we are and the more we can better help our children. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video today, and I will see you next time. Bye.